Night Vision on the new René's radio network. Following clues left by our ancestors and travelling to the stars. Decoding mysteries and discoveries. Exploring secret meanings and hidden wisdom. Uncovering secret knowledge. So let's get into Night Vision with your host, René Barnett.
Well, hello everybody. This is the official relaunch of Night Vision Radio. If you're familiar with the show, we've been on an extended hiatus. I think we just figured out it's about a year. A lot has happened within that time. And so I'm now coming to you from the La Confluence Center that we've established here in Cuisa, France. I'm going to bring on my co-host right away so that he can also jump into the conversation. Tonight, we're just going to have a bit of a free-for-all. We're going to tell you about La Confluence. We're going to tell you about some things that are coming up. And we might get into a little bit of Templar history before we're done this evening. So I'd like to introduce our Director of History, who many of you know already, James Martin.
Well, I suppose with it being just over a year, I can't quite remember where I left off last time. But,
I don't think we need to complete a sentence or anything, but it might be helpful if we knew exactly where we ended. But I should mention, of course, it was mentioned in the intro, that we are now in our new location on a new platform on YouTube, New René's Radio. Is that what it is, Jay?
Yeah, New René's Radio, and we'll also be on Facebook, and eventually we'll be on some of the other streams that you'll be used to.
Yes.
So Instagram, etc., etc. So do keep your eyes peeled for that.
And some of the podcast streams as well. So we'll try to speak to those that are not looking at us and just listening, as well as showing a few things from time to time for those listeners and watchers. So anyhow, Jay, it's been a year. How does it feel to be back on the air?
What a long year it's been, I suppose. It's an awful lot has happened in the space of a year. For those of you who caught up with us over a year ago, you'll have been aware that I was in the middle of writing a manuscript for another book. That's done. It's soon to be published. So yeah, a lot's happened in a year, and at the minute, I suppose it feels like 1 year is occurring in 1 week. How about you?
Well, in a way, it feels like we never left. This feels very natural coming back. I was a little bit nervous because it had been so long, but it feels really great to be back. And I'm so happy to be able to share information that we're coming across in our researches, as well as information about what we have going on here at La Confluence. So it was about going on a year ago. I came over to France and set up La Confluence Center along with James Martin and with my colleague Jill Bladen, who's our art and design director. And we picked up a few helpers along the way. And so we established the center here. We've had presentations here, different authors. Of course, James has been doing presentations here naturally. I do have to say yours are always popular. We never have any trouble filling the room. In fact, it fills up fast. We have to turn people away. So people really do enjoy your speaking and your presentations. Always extremely well researched and well presented. Then after we've established ourselves here at La Confluence Center, we bought an additional property, which is right behind us here, and it's a much bigger property. And so it will be used for events in the future, as well as we'll have what's called a chambre d'hôte here in France, which is like a little hotel, sort of, with rooms for people who are coming over on tours, for artists and writers who want to come over and hang out in this beautiful, beautiful place and do their work. We're setting up a studio over there, by the way. I don't even think you know about this yet, James. We've just decided there's an extra room attached to the other house, and we've decided to make it into a studio for writers, photographers, different people. If someone is entertaining clients, therapists, people like that, it'll be for their use. And so we're getting everything geared up for the very, very near future. We've got an event coming up, a weekend event in August. Is it the 26th, James? Do you recall?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
For Neil's big weekend event, where there'll be a host of speakers, including James Martin, talking about their researches in this area and related topics. And Neil is an old hand at these presentations and tours. In fact, he's just coming back to town from back-to-back tours in the UK. So a lot of you might know him and know his tours. They're generally about megalithic sites, but also the broader related subjects as well. So I'm looking forward to this event that's coming up in August, because it's going to be right here at our place. And I'll get to see all the speakers. And I don't think I even have to pay admission. What do you think? You think I should?
Well, I do have to say, being sort of in the UK and, traveling around and doing all of that, it is much easier doing recordings of NightVision with only an hour's difference. Because previously it was,
for many years, we did it with 9 hours difference or 8 hours difference, 8 hours from the UK to Los Angeles, where I was located. So this is a lot better.
My iconic cup, my huge mug is still there, but it's a little smaller now because I don't have to fuel myself with coffee at 3 a.m. or whatever time.
Exactly. Yeah, that was pretty bad for you. It usually was at a more convenient time for me. So now, hopefully things will be a little bit nicer for you and you don't have to wake up in the middle of the night anymore. So that's good. But
famous last words, I think.
James was mentioning earlier about his book that he's just completed. Now, that book is actually part 1 of a 3-part series. So I'm assuming the next one is being prepped as we speak. But this one now, is the name going to stay the same, or is there something people could look at or look for to come out?
Yeah, so the 3-part series. So the book scheduled for release imminently. Obviously, don't want to date anything with recordings and all of that. It's called Order of Magnitude, and this is chronicling really the beginnings of the Knights Templar, but in a very odd way, because it being me, I haven't really started with the medieval period. I've started in Rome, and had a look at some parts of Europe, some obscure places, Cumbria, for example. Not many people look at Cumbria, but just having a look at what's going on in Europe that enabled the Knights Templar to flourish and to be created. And it's unusual for 16 chapters, or 17 if you include the preface and all of that. But 16 chapters, that only 3 of them really cover the Templars. The rest of it, we have a look at Rome for the first few chapters. Where do relics come from? What was this Christianity business and all of that. We have a look at what happens after Rome collapses in the West, the so-called Dark Ages, what happened there. Then, of course, over to Spain, Vikings, or the Norse, as I prefer. And then, we end up in the Temple period. Now, the next book is called Out of Order, and that is the downfall of the Knights Templar and what happened afterwards. They all just pack up and avoid arrest, or did they continue in some places? And the answer to that is obviously yes, they did. For example, in Portugal. And the last book is called Last Orders, and that's looking at how the Templars impact our society still today.
And in that last book, or would it be in the previous one, do you talk about sort of what happened? I know that many people are under the mistaken impression that the Knights Templar were all killed and all wiped out, but we know differently, of course, and they sort of went in different directions. I know, Spain being a prominent area where some of them went because the king left his land to them, which was an unusual step at the time. So is that going to be in the second or the third book?
So that's Alphonse the Battler. He was the king of Aragon. And in, I think, 1134, he leaves in his will the kingdom of Aragon to the Templars. That's in the first book. The second book covers what happened to the Templars in Spain, in Aragon, for example. Spain doesn't exist at this point. And sneak preview, they had a name change, and it's the same in Portugal. It certainly, there's an argument to be made that the Knights Templar founded Portugal. Certainly
Portugal.
Portugal, indeed. Certainly with Tomar, and there's quite an amusing exchange between, I think, another Alphonse, actually, a king of Portugal, and the Pope, arguing around the Pope says you must dissolve the Knights Templar, and the king says we're at war. We're at war with the Moors. We're trying to re-Christianize the Iberian Peninsula. No. These are our SAS. These are our crack troops. We're not doing this. And so, have a look at that. Now, I will just say, so the book was really finished last year, but you have to do redlining and, have a look through, double check sources. I'm still kind of doing a little bit of that. But the research role 3 is complete. So I'm also going to have a little hiatus, about 3 months. I'm not going to leave it a year. But 3 months before then, the task of writing. And I would just say, having a full-time job, this has been a labor of love, because every Saturday I've locked myself away in my office and got in the zone. That's happened. So, yes, it makes a difference not to be writing academic texts for once, and actually exploring the Templars. There is just a bit more of a preview outside of this 3-part series. There is another book that I'm researching at the minute, which is under the working title Keys to the Valley, and is a history of the Aude Valley in southwestern France, which includes towns such as where you are at Cuisa, Rennes Chateau, and actually looking at the broader history of the area, which for me is very interesting. And that's going to cover just roughly 200,000 years of history. So nothing much.
Nothing much, yeah. Well, I mean, clearly this is a passion project of yours. And as I've said from day one, this is the complete history of the Knights Templar, basically how the whole thing was hatched through the dissemination of them around that part of the globe when they were officially disbanded in France. But I really believe that this will be a work that will live on as a great reference book for history buffs and students, because it is so complete and it's never been done. This has never been tackled in this way. So I'm really excited. Much like your Templar map, it's never been done. So maybe you could share a little bit about that. I don't know if we're set up to give a sample of it today. I should have mentioned it before, but talk about your Templar map and what it is.
So the Templar map is just, again, about 10 years of producing a map of all of the Templar sites across Europe. So what this includes is it's fully interactive, and it's based upon Google Maps. And every single Templar site you can click on, it will give you more information, source information where you can find out a little bit more. And crucially, as I go through the map, and I will just say there are thousands of sites, so it's not something that you could really do overnight. So this is, again, I think it was last weekend, the weekend before, something like this, I ended up adding another 25 sites, which quite lengthy, as you can imagine. Quite a lot of information there. But again, I suppose, as René was just saying at the top of the show, where you have 1 year's hiatus, what's happened? Well, actually, that looks a little bit more like 200 sites added to the map, and it still doesn't quite feel like it's enough. It doesn't
That's
look
wild.
like it made a difference. So,
I mean, when you look at the map of Europe, it's basically these sites are all marked with a little red cross on the map. And in some areas, especially in this area, I mean, it's almost blood red, the whole map, because there are so many sites that James has identified. Most of them he's been to. And if you click on one of the little crosses, a little pop-up will pop up and give you information about where this is located, what it is, whether or not it's been confirmed. Most of them have been confirmed. Am I right about that?
All of them have been.
Yeah, all of them. Oh my gosh. Because I know, probably a year ago now, there were a few that you had up there that hadn't been completely confirmed yet, but I guess you've been busy. So I see the map coming up. See what I'm talking about, people? Now, if you're listening and not watching, it's an amazing number of sites in France. There's fewer in Spain, a lot in the UK.
So what you can see is the Languedoc here. There's a lot of sites. Now, there are gaps around here. So just for those that are listening, I'm referring to the periphery of northern and northeastern France. it's not that there aren't Templar sites there, it's just I haven't quite got round to it. So the last batch from weekend came from the area just south of Dijon. But as you can see from the map, there are a lot of sites, and what might surprise a lot of people is just quite how many sites are found not just in the UK but in Ireland as well. It was James Maidment, I think, in 1899, who wrote a book of Templar sites in the British Isles, and curiously said there were only 2 sites in Scotland, and then a very unusual line, which was there are no sites in Argyllshire. Well, naturally, you go and have a look in Argyll, and oh look, there it is. Now, this place is getting a little bit more prominence these days. This is called Kilmorey Knapp. And again, it's got a stamp on there, basically to show you that I've been. What you have at Kilmorey, I mean, firstly, it used to be owned by my ancestors in the Macmillan family.
I was just getting ready to say, isn't that close to the area where I have some ancestry also, or not?
I don't know about
Calhouns, the Colquhouns, the Calhouns.
The Calhouns are not really from that area, but they are from, they are obviously from Scotland, from more central from here. But yeah, I felt very much at home there, and lo and behold, found out my second cousin is the chief of Clan Macmillan, and George Macmillan was telling me that that the Kilmorey Knapp was built by the Macmillans, which should have been obvious because there is a huge cross there called a Macmillan cross. So why I didn't put 2 and 2 together, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, as you can see here, for example, there's you click on these sites and there's source information there. Kilmorey doesn't have anything because, well, I visited it, and at the time I was doing the UK and Scotland, I wasn't doing this. There are notable absences in the UK. In the northwest, there's really only Temple Sowerby. But you can see, if I just show everyone the concentration, something like, I think it was 20% of all of the preceptories in France were found in the Languedoc. And I haven't finished the Languedoc as yet.
Now, how far north? I noticed as you go up the coast of France, it stretches up. Is that up into a different country as well? Does that cross country lines? Like, where is the northernmost point where you've marked Templar sites on this side of the channel?
Okay, well,
on the French side.
Let me put the map back up for everyone.
Because I was trying to, my eyesight's not the greatest, so I was trying to figure out where that was.
So the most northern.
Well, of course, in the UK, but.
You've got Forvey Preceptory.
Mm-hmm.
That is the most northern identified in Europe. But if you're referring to mainland Europe here.
Yes.
That's the Netherlands.
The Netherlands, okay.
So near Groningen. Well, I suppose actually, you've got here over in Poland.
Wow.
Recent additions. I haven't been able to find more than 10 really sites in Poland. You just bear in mind this area here where you have Lithuania, etc. What you have is they're owned by another group of people who would eventually become the Hanseatic League. Sorry. But yeah, they're the Teutonic Knights.
Oh yeah.
Quite similar to the Templars in some ways, but
but not the same group. Not the same group with a different name.
No, very much. It's a different order. They were really trying to Christianize the pagan peoples of the Baltic, Estonia, etc. That was certainly something that they were involved in, quite gruesomely, if you ask me, in some instances. But really didn't like other orders encroaching on their turf. So yeah, but yeah, the map. I keep looking at it, thinking, is it nearly finished? And I don't think it is. There's well over 1,000 sites on that map. There are obvious gaps, or at least obvious to me. In France and Spain, but this is the beauty of history. Humans seem to forget their own story, and really it's the job of historians to remember things for our species. So we do find ourselves yeah, there was a site towards the city of Tours, and I was driving to France and needed somewhere to stop, as you do, and saw this really unusual estate. I'd say unusual, absolutely beautiful. It was unusual because it wasn't that expensive. Well, I booked myself in there. There was no chance I wasn't going to book myself in there, because as soon as I started reading about this unusual estate, site of a Templar preceptory. So one of the bucket lists ticked off for me was stopping a Templar preceptory. Well, that's done. But it wasn't, well, it wasn't on the map, and it wasn't really somewhere that was advertised. It's only now with this estate being a hotel, and also some like private rooms and all of this, that history's exploded and come to life in the past couple of years. So we're re-remembering things, and so I can imagine there being one point in time that I go, right, I've finished with this map, and then there'll be some more discoveries and more.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. If you want to access the map, I do have to say you are going to need to go to the Confluence in Coisa, and you can certainly have a play around with the map and take some notes, or do whatever. Or as a number of people have been doing, you can contact me directly. What we've had is, were there any Templar sites in this area? Let me be honest about something else, though. I'm tending to use the map for if I feel like taking a few days holiday. I'm looking at the map going, yeah, I'm going to go down there. So a trip to Spain for New Year, and being a unbelievable Templar site was absolutely fantastic. So yeah,
it's just an amazing part of history. And you're right, historians do need to stand watch over what's happened in the past. I mean, unfortunately, in the United States, we've developed a tendency to want to erase history that doesn't put the United States in a very good light. And I think that's a real shame. So it is up to the historians to stand watch and make sure that history is not lost.
Yeah, we kind of had to. I mean, I remember being in New York, traveling to, is it LaGuardia Airport, and the taxi driver or cab driver was explaining that some buildings from the 17th century, the early 1600s, were being demolished recreated in the exact same way, so that air conditioning units could be put in. And I just thought, wow,
gosh,
that's absolutely
shame.
absolutely shocking, really. But
Yeah, because unfortunately, there are not that many structures that are that old in the United States. I mean, when something is 100 years old, a house, we think that's a very old house in the United States. If it's from the 1800s, wow, that's a big deal. And then, of course, I come here, and my house was built in the late 1600s, but other people's houses were built in 1100, and it's just amazing
I
to
don't
be
think
able to see the work.
I don't think I've ever lived in a house that isn't more than 300 years old.
That's crazy. That is so.
Uh,
We value new things, new shiny things in the United States, but I guess that's what we have. So I guess that's to be admired in some ways. But it's wonderful to be able to be in these old buildings, walk along these old roads and things that have been traveled for a couple of thousand years or more. And you can actually feel it. You can feel the history, and it's a very different experience here. So I can say, but I really do appreciate that about Europe, is that you can go back in time. You can basically time travel by going to these sites, and then at least in your mind, take yourself all the way back. But you mentioned something, I think it was when you were talking about Teutonic Knights, about their job or their mandate was to Christianize. Um, and it made me think, and you know how my mind works, crazy, right? But it's a non sequitur, but it reminded me of something, I was discussing with another one of our fellow researchers this week regarding the Marxist and also Opus Dei. And, I always kind of have like a knee jerk reaction when Opus Dei comes up, because it always sounds a little scary and dark and weird and different. But what is your opinion of Opus Dei, and what are some of the facts about Opus Dei? Exactly what are they?
well, again, you've mentioned Martinism and all of this. By the way, nothing to do with me. This isn't some cult that people have, looking after Clan Martin. Just before we come to that, I just want to, it's something that I should have mentioned before, that if you do want to email us, you can email us at thenewrennies@gmail.com.
Yay!
That's the new Rennies, 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 the new Rennies@gmail.com.
Great.
I know some of you already have, certainly asking about old coins and other such things. Quite happy to answer as we, as questions come in. And I think eventually we'll run some live shows as well, so you'll be able to interact with us live. But yeah, if you do want to get in touch with us, and again, banners just come up there, thenewrennies@gmail.com.
Old coins and ancestry.
All kinds of ancestry. That's
if you're exploring your ancestry, I would suggest getting a hold of James Martin, and he works very quickly and makes lots of really interesting connections. Certainly in my genealogy that I never expected. They just popped up. But oddly, a lot of characters popped up that I've been interested in and done research on over the past couple of decades. And I was surprised to see them popping up in my family tree. It was pretty interesting. And then, of course, our genealogies sort of cross over at a few different points. So that's fun too. I didn't expect to see anything exciting or anyone notable in my background. And the only reason that that makes a difference to me is that if there weren't any notables in my background, I wouldn't be able to get very much information about some of my ancestors because, unfortunately, the blacksmith who I've also got in my background wasn't written about. I don't know anything about him. Uh, but other people that were of a little bit, higher standing, I do know more about. So that's kind of interesting. So,
And
yep.
that's it. I mean, the people have asked for assistance or asked me to. I know previously we've run a Night Vision prizes. We might very well do that again in the future.
Free family tree.
Free family tree. But generally, it sounds a bit crazy, this, but one of the things that I will ask people is, where is there somewhere other than perhaps where you live that you feel at home? Because with a scary, scary regularity, it just so happens relatively recently in time, for me, 200-300 years, you might find that that's where your family used to live, or an offshoot, and it's just unusual, the way that that works. But yeah, in summary, get in touch. We'll try and help you as best we can. But you did ask, sorry, I just jotted something down. Opus Dei and the Martinis. Well, Opus Dei it's not that old. It's not even 100 years old. It's about 96, 97 years old. It was founded in 1928.
Why?
Well, the stated objective is essentially purifying Catholicism.
And how was it meant to do that?
Well, it started off as a bit of a. I'm not going to use the word cult, but let's just say pressure group, until one of the popes in the 1950s, 60s time essentially says, "Yes, fine, we'll approve you as a part of the as a part of the church," but what Opus Dei does, I mean, perhaps let's ignore the Da Vinci Code, but perhaps also just keep it in mind.
I've got that picture in my head, though.
Yeah. It focuses that the stated objective is that everybody should be a saint, in essence. And it's not an order that has any monks or nuns. It's laity and priests, effectively. Now, you'll have to forgive me, everyone, I'm not a Catholic, so I'm just trying to be balanced as I can be. But in essence, you've got prayers, and then I think what the Da Vinci Code did is highlighted mortification. That is to say, damaging the skin is quite literally. So that could be anything ranging from this release to fasting, or actually
self-flagellation,
silence, etc., etc. It's being described as one of the most controversial, if not polarizing, parts of the Catholic Church. It was relatively unknown before the Da Vinci Code, if we're being quite honest, and it has been compared to Scientology. Especially with its use of deceptive and aggressive recruitment practices. So the usual sort of idea of showering you with love and attention until you become a member, effectively.
Oh, wow.
It's
love bombing.
Yeah, and again, has been subject to criticism as the general Catholic Church has. But essentially, I would describe it as being, a very Catholic conservative group. I would definitely suggest that they're not the best friends of LGBT or any
To say the
equalities.
least.
Yeah, but that's it in essence.
I wonder what they think generally about Pope Leo, or what
But
he thinks about them.
I don't think we'll be finding out about anyone's opinions on who. I should imagine their opinions are shared in the dark corridors of the Vatican, perhaps. That's where we are. Now, you mentioned Martinism as well. Now, this
Yeah.
is this
And
is
is there are the Opus Dei members Martinists? Is there a connection between the two?
not outwardly, no. It's possible, I suppose, for you to be a member of both, but you might have some conflicts. To be fair,
Hmm.
it depends on your view, I guess. But Martinism has been around. It predates the French Revolution. It is, and I think I'm going to butcher this one. It comes from Martin de Pascali, I think, actually, one of the two. Caught me off guard with that one, René. But he essentially, you've got two students. You got what was he? Someone called de Saint Martin, and I really do forget the other person as well. But essentially, you've got a teacher, this Martinez de Pascali, and then you've got Claude de Saint Martin and all of this. And effectively, what they did in the 1740s, 50s is established an order. There looks like Masonic Templarism, to be fair. That looks like a very Catholic, a very right wing as well.
Yeah.
Order. For me, Martinists are the Catholic Church's version of Masonry. And it's unusual because it comes at a time where the Catholic Church is pursuing the execution of Masons in the 1700s.
Mm.
So it's it's at odds with that doctrine.
Well, it seems to me, I could be wrong about this, obviously, but that there's some sort of a resurgence in interest in people wanting to be a part of Opus Dei and others Martinists, and it does definitely have a Masonic link or undertones. So, but is it like we know that some groups sort of co-opt Norse culture or Templar culture that generally are aligned with the right more. Is this sort of something similar where they're taking a bit of belief systems like anti-LGBTQ, LGBTQ plus things, or maybe even racist ideas? Is that part and parcel of it, or am I just way off base?
It's my take on this is, and actually it ties up with the third book as well. My take on this is, at the end of the Victorian period, or La Belle Epoque, in France, you have a resurgence of, well, one, you have nationalism really beginning to kick in. And so you've got the royal families that remain in Europe really, really obsessed with blood. If you think about it, the sciences are obsessed with blood because we discover new blood groups, and you have, well, ruling monarchs at the time, certainly in Russia, where haemophilia is a thing, and all of this. And what the royals end up doing is trying to look back in time to demonstrate that they're from the House of David, and you end up with some very unusual, really unusual attempts to prove that. You also then have a number of groups that begin to develop who are also then claiming that they are actually traditionally or whatever spiritually the successors to some orders. So the Knights Templar would be a good example there, where you have the sort of new Knights Templar and all of this. And in fact, some Rosicrucians, who then start claiming, oh, actually, we've been around for a long time. And these groups sort of pop up. Well, they're a bit temporary, really, because most of them are effectively destroyed due to world wars. Who's going to be members if you've been mowed down in Arras or Vimy Ridge, somewhere like that. And recently, and let's say recently for me is, if we just stick to roughly the past 50 years, of course, there's been a resurgence of these groups. And yes, some have co-opted symbology, as happened, before the last World War. Norse symbols, chivalric symbols, as in my opinion, a warped form of nationalism. Remember, the Templars they owned a lot of Europe, but they didn't have a country. Perhaps if they'd have been around a little longer, you'd have had a Templar country in the Languedoc, but we'll never know. So it's strange to think that some of their symbols have been co-opted for nationalism when they weren't really nationalistic. In fact, the nation states, specifically France, was the reason for their destruction. So you could make an argument using that symbol is against nationalism, but it's symbols of strength and purity on one side, and then on another you have people using and co-opting symbols for mysticism and all of this. And yes, there has been a resurgence. I mean, the Martinists, if we come back, there's a lot of people sort of joining, and I can't talk about that, secret, and anti-special, and all of that story. I mean, I don't pay close attention really to them, but I remember reading something that they joined or something like this with the Rosicrucian organizations from the Victorian period. Just incidentally, just bear in mind that the German regime during the Second World War had suppressed any non-official cults or anything to do with the occult if it went against their particular beliefs. And
it's interesting because obviously Hitler and Himmler were very interested in the occult.
Yeah, but if you're a Martinist, you weren't part of that group. So a lot of Martinists were avoiding saying the word so that we're not scrubbed off YouTube, but yes, met their demise in some of the horrors that regime gave. Yeah. So yeah, and I do think there is a bit of a resurgence because ultimately I think people are really trying to get to the bottom that life doesn't feel it feels fraught with worry and danger, And I think people are trying to fulfill a deep yearning for meaning. And I think that's I speak to, I know a lot of people from lots of different countries, and it seems to be the theme at this present. And for some people, joining, an order helps them get some meaning.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Just let's hope there's no goat sacrifice. But
Yeah.
that is a joke before anyone starts.
I can get to that idea that people are looking for something. They're looking for a sense of belonging, a sense of meaning, and that sort of thing. But it seems to me, again, it's just me, that a lot of people are looking for meaning in places where they find meaning at the expense of others. And I don't know what that is about human beings, that there's always got to be an enemy.
Well,
that's just me.
It's always been the case. I mean, there were different branches of Martinism. Some that believed in Templar connections, others that didn't. There's been some names attached. I mean, no evidence for this that I've seen, but that's Abbe Sonnier of Ran the Chateau fame was a Martinist, but yeah, it's certainly rumoured. Have I seen any evidence of it? No. Be interesting to find out. I know some people who have read up about Martinism, and that has led them to apply to become a Mason, for example. So there's that avenue. I think, with anything, you hit the nail on the head there, haven't you? Some humans try and, got to have an enemy. Well, sorry, the Da Vinci Code set up an enemy called Opus Dei. It's probably, whilst I don't agree with, some of their practices and what have you, I can't also say that every single person who's a member of Opus Dei is horrible, because that's not true. But we created a sort of enemy and, mystery. And again, it's not just that feeling of, of want and belonging and all the rest of it. There are a lot of mysteries that we have. There are lots of questions out there, and sometimes some groups will say we've got the answer.
Many times they do.
Organized religions got quite a feat on that one. And some groups might have more information. Others might not. That's just the nature of it. For those two groups, anyway. But I would just give general caution if anyone says, "I have the answer." If it's then followed up with, "But it'll cost you £50," and some pyramid scheme of you've got to go into this group, and then when you get to the 7th level, no, it's then a higher level. I'd suggest you run away quickly in the opposite direction. The only answer you'll be getting there is, why is it I don't have any more savings or money in my bank account?
Yeah.
But isn't, all of this is really about, the meaning of life. When you think about it, we're all on a quest to understand why we're here. No one's given me a satisfactory answer as to what it's all about, but that's what we should be striving for. And joining different groups and all the rest of it, fine. But again,
yeah, I mean, as and many of the listeners, if they're still out there, I have a problem with organized religion in general, and so I do try to be careful, because I'm sort of tainted in that way, and I have a tendency to look at things through that lens. So I have to be careful and remain objective as you're doing.
Well, remember, we've got to remember that discrimination comes about when we act on our own biases. And just, if you look, be a healthy skeptic with everything. There are some things we can't explain. There are others that are really quite obvious. I've said this so many times on the show. One of my biggest irritations actually is when people look at periods of history and judge through today's glasses,
Yes.
today's eyes. You can't do that, I'm afraid. Well, you can, but you'll never understand what people were actually feeling, going through at the time.
That's
So
right.
there's no context for it, and you have to understand, and unfortunately it does take a bit of reading and knowing and all of this to try and explain why people made decisions they did at the time, even if it's uncomfortable for us.
Exactly.
Some things can't be justified, incidentally. But we shouldn't assume, for example, oh, good God, why didn't everyone take a bath, for example? Just a discussion I was having yesterday with someone. Well, having a bath was like going to the pharmacy. You only had a bath if you were ill and rich enough to afford to boil water. That was it. It's no one's thinking about cleanliness because we don't know about bacteria. Washing your hands is fine. There's a bit of information about it, but medicine back in the day was all about the four humours. And if you had a bath, well, you might end up in, balancing one of the humours out and all of that. It's so you've got to understand things like this. Try and understand the context of the time is one of my irritations.
Yep, that is one of your pet peeves, all right. Well, gosh, it looks like we're headed right to the end of the hour here. And before we go, I'd like to thank everyone for rejoining us, and those, of course, new people, especially welcome to you. I hope you'll come back again. We've got some great shows coming up. Some of the guests that we have coming up in the near future. Gretchen Cornwall, Ani Williams, Court Lindahl, Neil McDonald, Catherine DeCourcy. And if you have one of your favorites that you'd like to hear interviewed on the show, send us an email and we'll be happy to reach out to them. And keep watching, hopefully. And Jay, thank you for joining me today and for getting all this ready to go. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been it's been good to be back. And hey, René, don't leave it so long next time.
No, I'll try not to. I'll try to go a little bit faster. I'm getting old. I don't have that much time to be wasting. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
See you later.
See you soon.